So I was referred to an oncologist, but in the meantime, after a couple days in the hospital, the one nurse my favorite nurse there, unfortunately I could not remember her name, but the way Crystal, very, very compassionate, caring, attentive. Assertive, yes. She was very assertive. Well, I called her Sarge because of her assertiveness. She wouldn't take any lip from me, but she was very, very nice about it. I'm not a bad patient anyway. I'm a smart ass with a dry sense of humor. And she could handle it. She noticed that around the incision in my abdomen was a little red. And I had just thrown her a smart-ass comment. And without saying a word, she had just happened to lift up the gown and had the bed sheet down a little bit to check my abdomen. She just so casually pulled out her pen, started humming, and drew what I think Amber and my sisters thought looked like an amoeba on my stomach, but had never said anything about the redness. And she called another nurse over very calmly and casually. Come on over, I just want to show you something. And showed it to her. And she left the room. Not a big deal. It was like Sarge was kind of mocking me. Look what I did to this patient. Well, this other nurse came back with a chart. And they started looking at the chart and comparing it to my abdomen. And they both said they agreed. And she said, looks like there's something going on. Maybe a bit of an infection. I don't want to take chances, so I'm going to go call the surgeon. Well, it didn't take long for the surgeon to show up. An hour, maybe?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Okay. My sisters were. Yeah. It didn't take long for the surgeon to get there. And they looked and agreed that it didn't look bad, but they also agreed that they should be cautious. The surgeon came in and took a look and agreed something was going on, but didn't think it was bad, but they didn't want to take any chances. Yes, so the surgeon, they looked, and then one of the residents, she came up and took staples out in two different places where the margins or the edges of the incision were a little more red. So she popped the stitches and then took saline and kind of wiped it on the incision and very gently opened it up at two places. One spot was about inch and a quarter long. Yeah, inch and a quarter long, the smaller one. Inch and a quarter, inch and a half or so. And then it opened up to be 3/4 of an inch wide. Maybe almost an inch because of the skin pulling it back. And the other one, the larger one, which was in between the first one was near the top of the incision. The other one was halfway between there and my belly button, and she opened up about 2 inches on that one. And when I say they open it up, it's opened right up to your intestines, or muscle wall, whatever they put back together in there. So the holes were, 1.25 inches or more deep.
Look through and see your spine.
Yeah, my sisters were looking at it with great interest, and one sister, being the one that was a smart ass like me, she said, "Hey, I can see your spine." I said, "Yeah, if you're a country doctor, you'd be looking at me going, hey, I can see your anus." But, they thought it was interesting, and my sister oldest sister, Val, brought out her phone and took a couple pictures of it. So, got a couple pictures then, and then they had to put packing in it. They left it open for a few hours, cleaned it with saline and cotton swabs, and there was a tunnel between the two holes, and the two holes were maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches apart. The whole incision's about 10 inches long. So it got left open, and then they packed it later that evening with this kind of a packing material, cotton or something, that's sterile, and put that in, kind of weave it back and forth into the areas, and then they put dressing over it and tape. Every day they came and they pulled this packing out, and the packing would basically absorb anything that was the germs or bacteria that was trying to form on top of the flesh underneath, or in the holes. And it started off that the small one took about 25 centimeters of this ribbon, and the big one took about 35. And they just pack it loosely. And the first 2 days they were able to push it through the tunnel into, from one side to the other. Didn't push it right through, but from both sides they pushed it till it kind of met in the middle. And then they cover it up. And basically you have to heal from the inside out after that, which slows down everything. So I went through that for the next few days at the hospital till I was released, and they were able to set up home care, which they sent us home with a basic care package of medical supplies to start, and a nurse would show up every day. Most of them were late morning, early after, late morning to lunchtime. There was one that would come 8:30 or 9, which was nice because you didn't have to wait all day, because it wasn't a set appointment. That's all they did was go house to house where patients were convalescing at home, and they'd clean dressings or do whatever they had to do. Hello. So every day for 44 days, they came and they pulled the tape off, and pulled the gauze off, and pulled out the packing, and filled the holes with saline, and dabbed it out, and then filled them again, and scrubbed around with a cotton swab, and until the swabs were coming out, kind of clean. And then they would, put the packing in, and as the holes grew smaller, because they're healing from basically the bottom up, they would put less and less packing, and the holes basically just closed gradually from the inside and from all the sides until they joined up again. So it's not a straight scar, it's got a couple spots where it kind of gets a little bit wider. And that took about 44 days. And as long as it was open, I couldn't drive, couldn't lift anything. It felt like I couldn't do anything. Oh, I couldn't. Amber, years I've always been bad at not carrying in the groceries and stuff. Amber tends to do it. I don't know why. I was always made her do that. Just closet chauvinist, maybe.
That one's because you hit the house and head for the bathroom.
Well, yeah, I'd have to go to the bathroom when we got home. And I would say, I'll help you when I was done, and you would just keep going. You wouldn't wait for me to finish. Anyway, so she had to do all the lifting, carrying, and stuff, and couldn't shower for almost 2 months. There was sponge baths, and if you've ever had to do that for any length of time, you know it's not the easiest way to be clean and stay clean. And then once it healed, and well, we had also had appointments set up for the surgeon for a follow-up, and that's actually coming up tomorrow, the June 2nd. And we have had appointments set up with an oncology nurse or the oncologist who reviewed everything and explained everything to us. That was 2-3 weeks ago.
28, yeah.
Yeah, about 2 weeks.
28. No, it says 1st of June.
Oh.
That was the 28th of May. That was a month ago.
Yeah. 28th of May was a few days ago. 28th of April.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked to him while the staples were still in, the rest of them, and it was still open then.
No. It was still open, the staples were out. You went.
Oh, right. Okay, so I went a couple of weeks, or a week and a half, 10 days, or whatever, and they took the rest of the staples out. But it was still getting packed every day.
Yeah.
We saw the oncologist, and he basically explained what the scan showed, and what it did show. It was a scan before the surgery, and it showed this, I think it was 2 by 3 centimeter mass in the small bowel, which completely blocked it off, 100%. So it had been gradually closing, and I guess that night whatever I ate just finally plugged up the hole, and that was it. Wasn't letting anything go by anymore. So that became life-threatening. Where it would have, I would have dehydrated and starved to death. I guess I would have dehydrated first. You can't go without water. You can go without food a long time, but not water. And like you said, that they were able to take out a 4-inch section of the small bowel and resect it, which was the second choice of theirs. Orthoscopic was out of question because of the size of what they found. I think after I don't think they even started to try doing it orthoscopically, I think they just went right to opening. But one of the concerns would be that if they had to take too much out or couldn't get the two ends back together, then I'd end up with an ostomy bag. And because of my size, it would have to have been higher up on my gut, because you have to be able to see to clean it and put it on properly and all that stuff. So it would have been fairly high on my abdomen, which would have been a pain in the butt, but better than, beats dying. But there was a larger mass that is attached or growing between the liver and kidney, which they didn't touch, or they would have had to open up too much to get at it. They were just life-saving mode, I guess. Still took them a couple hours to take the mass out and resect everything. But there were also, the scan showed other small spots elsewhere in the bowel. And because of those and the one between the liver and kidney, it basically puts me to a stage 4 bowel or colon cancer. And there were also numerous ones on the abdominal floor, peritoneum.
There's also one in the colon.
Was there?
There's one at the top of the colon.
At the top of the colon? Which, that's the one that would have been just out of range of the camera when they did the colonoscopy.
Yeah.
But my colonoscopy from not even a year ago was clear, so this was all just above where they could see. So I was tested for that last year. Did the shit on a stick, and I guess it showed a little bit of blood. So, unfortunately for me, it's going to be an uphill battle. Now comes the hard part for me to talk to you about. If I decided not to do chemotherapy and just decided to go home, I'd have somewhere between 6 months and a year. And they can't predict exactly. It could have been a month, could have been 2 years. But they, on average, from what they see, I would have been 6 months to a year. With the chemotherapy, I'm going initially for 6 rounds. Every 2 weeks I go. And it's about 2.5 hours in the cancer care chair in the hospital. And then I'm hooked up to my baby bottle here that is an elastomeric pump. Basically looks like a condom in a bottle. And it has the chemotherapy in it. I'm hooked up through a port up in my chest here. And over the course of about 46 to 48 hours, it squeezes the chemotherapy drug, the toxin, into my bloodstream for 2 days, and I go get unhooked tomorrow afternoon. And then that's supposed to wipe out the white blood cells, and then next week is a free week, if you can call it that, where my immune system will be compromised this whole time, but it'll reach bottom sometime next week. More likely on the weekend, and then it start trying to fight back to where we go back a week Monday and get my blood work done. They do a blood test to check the white cell count and everything. And Tuesday, I go back and see the doctor, the oncology physician, and he reviews how things are going. And then if they have to adjust the dose up or down based on how I'm tolerating it, they'll do that at that time. And then I go Wednesday and get hooked up in 2.5 hours or 3 hours, and then another 2 days with the bottle, and that's the start. Basically, the start of the second round will be on a week Monday when I go in for the blood work. That's the start of the cycle.